On January 18, 1919, delegates from more than 30 nations gathered in Paris to shape the world after the most destructive war humanity had ever known. World War I had ended just 2 months earlier. Over 16 million people were dead. Empires had collapsed. Europe was physically shattered and psychologically exhausted. The Paris Peace Conference was meant to secure lasting peace. Instead, it created a fragile order built on punishment, resentment, and imbalance. The most powerful voices in the room belonged to the Big Three: United States President Woodrow Wilson, British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, and French leader Georges Clemenceau. Wilson arrived with idealism. He promoted self-determination, open diplomacy, and a new international body to prevent future wars, the League of Nations. France arrived with fear, having suffered invasion twice in 50 years. Clemenceau demanded security, revenge, and permanent weakness for Germany. Britain arrived torn between the two, seeking stability, but also protection of its global empire. Germany, the defeated nation most affected by the decisions, was not allowed to negotiate. The result was the Treaty of Versailles. Germany was blamed solely for the war, forced to surrender territory, limit its military, and pay massive reparations that crushed its economy. New borders were drawn across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, often without regard for ethnic, cultural, or historical realities. Empires vanished, but instability replaced them. The League of Nations was created, but without enforcement power and without the United States, whose Senate refused to join. At the time, the treaty was celebrated as a triumph of diplomacy, but beneath the signatures, anger was growing. Economic collapse, national humiliation, and unresolved tensions became fertile ground for extremism. Just 20 years later, the world would be at war again on an even larger scale. January 18, 1919, reminds us that peace imposed without balance does not heal wounds, it preserves them. Why do we learn history every day? Because decisions made in moments of victory often shape decades of suffering, and understanding those choices helps future generations recognize when peace is being written to end wars, or merely pause them. History shows us that triumph can be dangerous when it silences humility. When winners rush to punish instead of repair, the future quietly begins to fracture. We learn history to see beyond celebrations and signatures, to notice who was excluded, who paid the price, and which problems were postponed rather than solved. Because unresolved resentment does not disappear, it waits. History trains the present generation to question agreements that sound final but feel fragile, and to recognize when justice is replaced by convenience. Every border drawn, every treaty signed, every voice ignored leaves a shadow that stretches forward in time. History is not old. History is living inside us. One day, one event, one lesson. Mr. Fidi,